This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right. How you doing, my man? Good?
I'm doing all right, man. Unfortunately, I just arrived at my destination for the weekend, which you wouldn't believe it. It's back in Buffalo. And so I'm looking outside my window, and there's snow out here. I'm just hoping I don't get stuck here for a week again. I just want to cover it.
Supposedly it's not. Are you? They're not supposed to get a
So
storm,
the
right?
game is supposed to be clear. The game is
Right.
supposed to be clear. We're getting on and off snow today. There may be a little tomorrow morning, but supposedly Sunday when the game's played, there's no worry of snow. It is currently snowing, and there is a lot of snow on the ground. And they are having shovelers. They invited fan shovelers to come to the stadium starting at 2 o'clock to shovel the stadium. And so it's still a factor in Buffalo, but it shouldn't impact the game. Like, we shouldn't have a postponement issue like we did last week. The issue will just be, what is it like for people to drive, and does it affect flights for me to try to get home on Monday morning?
Right. Okay. All right. I mean, are you getting a pad there on the side?
What?
Just, since you're starting to live there, I mean, what the hell?
No.
Maybe they can get a little room for you on top of the anchor bar, and that's it. And that way you can pick up, get wings, and cover the bills.
It's funny, at the airport, I keep running into snowbirders, and they look at me weird when I tell them I'm doing the opposite. I live in Florida. I'm just going into the storm every weekend just for fun. You know? It's a different type of snowbirding. I don't know what you would call that, but I live in Florida, and just when they get the coldest, snowiest weather, that's when I'm going out to Buffalo. No. This will be my last weekend at Buffalo, unless something crazy happens this weekend. Even if the Bills do win, they would most likely play at Baltimore next week, unless Baltimore lost to the Texans. So
right.
I would still be cold, but I would be in Baltimore versus Buffalo next week, assuming that the Ravens win.
I'd rather have crab cakes than buffalo wings. So,
the thing is, I really like buffalo wings, and I will say that I had probably 4 different places of buffalo wings last week because I was here for 7 days. And they were all pretty good. But I did not know this until this past week, but there is a limit of how many buffalo wings you can eat. And before you're like, man, I think I want something different. Like, I've long been a wing guy, and I thought like wings were a type of food where, hey, you can't get tired of them. I am here to tell you, yes, you can get tired of wings. And I found that out this week. Every time I went out, somebody was like, hey, try this place. And I was like, what do they serve? And like, wings. I'm like, please, give me something. Give me a burger. Give me a pizza. Give me something, a steak, something else other than wings. And so I've had a 3 or 4 day wing break. I think I still need a couple more. Maybe by Saturday, maybe by Sunday, I can be ready to have wings again. But right now, I've had my wing fix.
I'll tell you what I'm guilty of. I can eat Mexican and Italian every damn day of my life.
Really?
Every day of my life, I can eat those two types of food. God, I love Mexican and Italian food.
Wow.
Yeah, I can eat that every day, bro. Every day. Dangerous as hell. Anyway, all right, let's get to it. Let's talk a little Dolphins. I've been trying to walk people off the ledge and all that stuff because, they always talk crazy stuff about the quarterback. Tua's here to stay. Just, get over it, whatever you talk about. I don't even understand the stupidity of Justin Fields or anything like that. I don't know what information you have, but you tell me what you think. Tua will be signed to a long-term deal this time.
Yeah, I believe so. I'd be shocked if Tua's not the quarterback to start week 1 of 2024. Like, I don't think that's a realistic consideration. I do think the main question, which has been asked, and it's probably a legitimate question, is this the offseason to give him the long-term extension? I think that's probably the only reasonable question, whether he plays on the 5th-year option or if he gets a long-term extension. I don't think there's any question that he's your starting quarterback in 2024. He's answered that. He stayed healthy, played at a Pro Bowl level. Yes, you want him to play better in big games late in the year, like you want them to as a team, like you want Mike McDaniel to coach better in them, but it doesn't mean you blow it up. I think Tua's your best option, your clear best option of what you're going to have, and he'll be your guy. So, like I said, the only question here is whether Chris Greer and the Dolphins say, hey, we're going to make him our guy and give him guaranteed money for the next 3 or 4 years this offseason, or if we're just going to make him play out one more year on that 5th-year option, kind of like
What
Lamar
do
did.
you think happens? Because I think it's a guarantee that he gets a long-term.
I don't think it's a guarantee, but I do think it's more likely than not. I think it's more likely than not that Tua ends up getting a long-term extension. From what I understood, I think the only thing you could say is if they go the Lamar route, what the Ravens did, which essentially Lamar ended up playing out his 5th-year option. Ultimately, they ended up having him franchise tag, and then he ended up getting the long-term extension. Now that ended up playing out a little longer. I don't know that the Tua situation goes out that long, but if they really, really felt like, hey, we're not ready to give him, and this is only if Tua's camp is playing a little bit more hardball and say, hey, we want, near top of the market money, and the Dolphins aren't ready to give them top of the market money right now is $55 million a year. If Tua and his team are like, hey, we want to reset the market, and the Dolphins are like, hey, we're not there.
They won't allow that.
And I'm not saying, I'm just saying hypothetical. I'm not saying that this is the case. But that might be the only scenario there if they can't get right on the number and Tua's like, hey, I'm not going to settle for just any long-term deal, then that would be a scenario where I can see both sides saying, hey, okay, well, I value my client more. I'm not there yet on your guy. And so let's play it out one more year and see if he could do the exact same thing he did last year, ideally with some better end of the season results. And then if he does that, maybe we'll meet your number. That would be the one scenario there. But I think ultimately, given what the situation is, the injuries Tua's had, the fact that he loves Mike, the fact that Mike seems to love him, and the fact that this is the guy they drafted for the idea that he could be their long-term answer, I think they find a way to get a deal done this offseason.
Vic, stay or go?
I think he stays. I certainly heard what Mike McDaniel said in the press conference when he was asked, and he kind of seemed to leave it open instead of like a zapped, hey, he's back. But I think that was more of a cautious thing for all of his coordinators. I do know they've had some conversations with coaches already this week. There's going to be some changes.
The coaching stuff is next week. The coaching stuff is all next week when they have their
they've started to have some conversations. I do know that several coaches were having meetings planned yesterday and today with Mike McDaniel to talk about their role going forward. I talked with some lower level coaches who know they're not coming back next year, and that'll probably come out at some point later today, a couple of those names. But I haven't heard as of right now any big news, like move shaking news. Obviously, we're going to keep an eye on what happens with Frank Smith. He's interviewing for a few head coaching jobs. So if he ends up getting one of those jobs, then obviously you have to shuffle some things on the offensive side of the ball. But I think more likely than not, you see a decent amount of status quo on this staff.
But the Vic stuff, I think, is next week, is when they, like the big coaches, they'll meet with those guys. And I think I think he comes back when it's all said and done.
I do too. Vic is a different dude, so you never know what he's thinking. But he has a contract for at least multiple years left on his deal where he's getting paid highest paid defensive coordinator in football money. And so there's not like he necessarily would want to go elsewhere. He's not going to get that. That's not a situation where he's leaving to go.
Oop, we lost him. There we go. He's back. Wait a minute. Okay, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Back. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, my wife is calling me. It's not like he would be leaving for a more advantageous situation. It would just be like if he decided all of a sudden, hey, I'm done. Which I don't get the vibe that he was worn out too much where he's like, I'm done with quote coaching. And I don't think that there was such a disconnect between him and McDaniel where McDaniel was like, hey, forget it. We're going to eat that money. But I will say I'm going to keep an eye on, I don't know if this is the offseason, but Anthony Campanelli is getting a lot of love throughout the league as far as a potential defensive coordinator. And I think that he has the right temperament, the right coaching style, the right leadership ability. He's having an interview with the Giants for their defensive coordinator gig, which would be I'm sure if he got offered it, he would take it because he's a New Jersey guy. It's an amazing opportunity for him. But regardless, eventually they're going to have some of these younger coaches come up, and they're going to have to decide, do we risk losing one of our rising coaches? Austin Clark will be another guy that's in that realm as well, versus keeping Vic. So maybe that's a year or two down the line. But eventually, I think they're going to have a succession plan for post Vic. I just don't think it's this year.
And then Crossman, why isn't his ass already out on the street?
Yeah, I think they're going to go through the process. Like, obviously, Crossman's been through a couple different regimes, and one thing I think that's probably not us in the media and the fans probably don't give enough credit to is just like maybe their role with the coach outside of their main role. Like, we look at Crossman as a special teams coach. He helps McDaniel with a lot of like game management stuff, like a lot of different planning stuff. And so there's probably reasons why McDaniel views him as valuable. Now, I'll tell you what, I've watched special teams for 2 or 3 years now. I think they should have got an upgrade on his special teams ability. But there are probably reasons why.
He's helping in game management. He ain't helping much.
Right. But the reason I say that is that like certain coaches, for Mike in particular, I think he wants to have different perspectives because Crossman's not from his tree, but also veteran coaches who have a know-it-all. And so Fangio is one thing, but I think Crossman gives him a little different perspective, which is why they kept him around. Now, I do think that this should be the offseason. You start to look at other options. This is my opinion. But you're asking me why he's stuck around, why he hasn't been axed the day after the season. I think they do probably see more value in him than we do.
I think that stuff is next week. All those.
Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if he certainly is still out and they find a new special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
I don't think that decision's been made yet. Right. That's my point. But I'm just saying it wasn't a situation where they were like, as soon as the season's over, I'm giving Crossman his walking papers. I don't think there was that much angst with him as there may have been in the media and the fan base.
Well, no, and they probably don't have his replacement yet. So
exactly. You got to interview guys. You got to go through a whole process, know who your candidates are, that sort of deal. And so, yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right. What's it called? Who goes? Who goes? Who's gone? Give me the names that you think are gone.
I don't know. I don't know if I want to play that game because I don't want to talk about coaches. This is their livelihood and stuff like that.
No. I'm talking about players.
I mean, it's players' livelihoods too, but they're a little bit more expendable because they can pop from team to team a little easier. I think Emmanuel Ogbah's going to be gone. I think it was a clear not fit between him and Vic Fangio. I don't know why Vic did not love Ogbah. Maybe it's a scheme. Maybe it's something else. But Emmanuel Ogbah probably will be one of the earliest, in my opinion, veteran releases. If they do right by him, they would get him gone earlier than later so he can get an early bite at that free agency market. But we'll see there. I'd imagine that they're going to ask Xavier Howard to take a pay cut. I don't think X is going to take a chop me in half pay cut. Like, I think he's set to make 17, 18 million or something this year, and none of it's guaranteed. If they tell him, hey, we're going to have to cut you down to 8 million, I think he's saying, no, you go ahead and cut me. But if it's something like, hey, we trim you 3, 4, 5 million, get you down to, 13, 14, 15 million, I could see him being amenable to something like that, possibly. So that's going to be an interesting question there. They're going to have tough decisions with Rob Hunt and Connor Williams. Both of their markets probably will dictate that. Connor in particular, coming off a torn ACL, it's balancing, like, how much do you want to bet on a guy coming off a serious injury? Probably not as serious as it used to be, but it's still something that's going to cost you. Probably, I'd imagine he's not back by training camp. It may be a situation where you're on the borderline of week 1. Like, is he going to be back week 1? Do you put him on PUP to start the first 4 weeks of the season type deal?
As long as you bring back Eichenberg, as long as you bring back birthday boy, because it is his birthday today. Happy birthday, Lee. Yep. As long as you bring back that. By the way, they told me
Eichenberg will be under contract, so I imagine he is back.
They love him.
Yeah.
They love what he did this year. They love how he filled in on one leg. They're actually pissed in the building that people aren't giving Liam more credit for the way he played because he was so screwed up while he was playing.
Yeah, okay? He played through a lot. Like, I know Eichenberg gets a lot of flack, but like, I've talked to Butch Berry and some of the people there. Like, what Liam Eichenberg played through keeps guys out 3-4 weeks typically. He played every week through it, and he played at a position that he hadn't played or started in until this season. And so it wasn't perfect. He certainly got his butt kicked sometimes, but I think it's a valiant effort for him, and I think that he's definitely going to have an opportunity to compete and probably be penciled in that role early in the offseason while Connor Williams coming back from injury if he is back. So yeah, him and Rob Hunt are two guys that I'm keeping an eye on because they are $40 million over the cap. Because the reality is, like, I know people say the cap isn't real. The cap is real. Like, yes, you can manipulate it to make it work in your condition, but you can't just say, bring everybody back. Cap isn't real. No, you have to start to make some decisions. And so you got a decision on Christian Wilkins coming up. You got a decision on Andrew Van Ginkel. I got a decision on the two offensive linemen I mentioned. You got
Wilkins. Is he gone or does he stay? Because I think he is absolutely gone.
Unless the Dolphins raise their number,
they
certainly have to raise his number significantly than what it was. He proved with his pass rush. He proved for his pass rush this offseason, because that was the big question. Could he get sacks? Could he have the pass rush? He proved that he deserves to be paid that four-year, $92 million deal that all his peers got. Are the Dolphins willing to pay him $22, $23, $24 million a year? They weren't last offseason. They weren't even in the 20s. And so they would have to significantly raise their offer. And other than that, I think you're going to see Christian Wilkins gone. I mean, I guess they technically could franchise tag him, but given their cap situation, I don't think they're putting that much of allotment on their cap.
I said that yesterday. There will be no tags.
Yeah.
No tags this offseason because they will not have the flexibility to hold a hard cap number for Wilkins or even Holland.
Right. And don't be surprised if you see some restructures. I think Tyreek will restructure his deal to get that cap number down. They're going to have Teron Armstead's got to make a decision if he's coming back, coming back to the NFL. And if so, they may restructure his deal a little bit. I don't think you extend him because he's definitely at the end of his legs of his career. But if he wants to give it one more go, maybe you make it a little bit more cap friendly for him as well. And then, yeah, like you said, you got Waddle coming up. You got Javon Holland coming up. You got Rob Hunt now. You got Christian Wilkins now. You got Andrew Van Ginkel now. You got to figure out who you're going to bring in with Chubb and Phillips going to be gone most likely early parts of the season. Like, there's a lot of question marks before you even get to the upgrade department. And so, if you get rid of X, like we talked about, which I think is a dangerous move, who are you going to have starting at corner? Is it Cam Smith, who you hadn't seen play all year? There's a lot of questions for this Dolphins team.
I think you draft another corner.
I think they tough. But they got to drop a left tackle too. Who's going to be the replacement for Teron Armstead in the future?
No, you bring Kendall Lim back is what you do
as your long-term left tackle starter.
No, as the fill-in for Armstead right now, at least.
Gotcha.
You bring him back. You have to Liam and Kendall. Dude, I can't tell you how important those guys are right now.
They are, but are they going to be your 17-game starter? Are they going to be your 17-game starters at left tackle and center?
No, not for you don't worry about that. You just worry about covering Teron Armstead's ass.
Gotcha.
At left tackle. And that's it for next year at least. You worry about the rest down the line. But for now, since you got to make a run and your window is probably 2 more years before it really gets ugly for you cap-wise, you got to do something right now. And I think Lamb and Liam are incredibly important to come back because of the depth. And now they have some continuity because Liam will be a better center next year when he's healthy and playing the game. And he understands the position now. You know what I mean? So I think he'll actually be a better player behind Connor whenever Connor does come back. They do love Connor in the building, by the way.
Yep.
They love Connor in the building. That I can tell you for sure.
Gotcha.
All right, one more thing before I let you go. I started a fire yesterday. I say they got to sign Derrick Henry because Derrick Henry is the guy that will bring, and you got to cover him plenty. They don't have thunder. They have a lot of – they need some thunder in there. And this might be what you need to keep Mike McDaniel a little bit more disciplined to stay with the running game because on short yardage, he's going to say, well, I'm just going to give it to the hog. And if you punish people with Derrick and then you're like hitting him, jabbing him like with Derrick, boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden you hit him with Mostert and Achane. and those guys are running at a different speed. It's like you swinging at curves and off speed, and then on 3 and 2, they run a 103 fastball right by your ass, and you're like a minute late on that swing. You know what I mean?
Right.
To me, Derrick Henry is a missing ingredient for this offense, and it'll help McDaniel maybe be a little bit more disciplined and keep most of an H-hand fresh.
Well, I got to be really brief with this because I got to leave shortly. But I will say this. I love Derrick Henry. A great guy. Doesn't say a ton as far as the media, but I got to know him really well. Great guy. I think he would certainly be an upgrade. The questions I would have is the Dolphins have very rarely put resources at the running back position. How much is it going to cost? Because Derrick Henry is going to be a very desirable piece for a lot of people. And running back is low on their priorities as far as quote-unquote upgrades. And so does that fall in line with the needs that we all discussed otherwise? If it makes sense, if the money's right and it makes sense, then yes, I love it for him because Derrick Henry gives them late game ability to be able to run the ball and lean on a guy. Durability he's shown, an ability to show power and speed. The one question I'll have, he's not a great pass protector or pass catcher, so you're still going to have to balance it out, like you said, with Mostert and H-hand. And I know McDaniel doesn't love to tip his hands of when Henry's in the game. You might assume it's a run versus vice versa. But Derrick Henry, to me, even at 30, is still a top 7 back in this league. And I would be wholeheartedly up for that. It's just what it costs, and is adding a Derrick Henry worth missing an upgrade at a corner position or a wide receiver or a left tackle. You got to balance all of that throughout your decision making.
Follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe and catch his work there at the NFL Network. Cam, as always, man, be safe there in your travels, my friend. We'll catch up next week.
All right, appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. There you go, Cameron Wolfe. And we love our folks at KSDT CPAs. They know how to get it done with your personal taxes, your business taxes. Please call our friends at KSDT CPAs. Use that QR code. We got the tax season coming up in April. Business taxes, that's all year round. You need that guidance. You got that company right there. You'll have an agent that is going to be working with you constantly and helping you out. And whenever you need some advice, you can pick up the phone, and KSDT is right there for you. By the way, they're also hiring in Dade, Broward, Palm Beach. They've got offices all throughout South Florida, and they've got a new office in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you happen to live and you're looking for work in this kind of area, call the folks at KSDT CPAs. Use that number 305-670-3370. And if you want to do your taxes right, use that QR code and reach out to our friends at KSDT CPAs.